Good morning. We're going to call this one your second Sunday psychedelic sermon. I don't want you to get used to these, but there are times where I feel something come up, a message come up, and so I feel like it's time to speak to those type of things. And so here we are. We're another Sunday, another beautiful Sunday. Actually, another beautiful Sunday, but again, it's hotter than Hades outside, and in the desert, you find out there's multiple weather versions. There's 105 degrees with 30% humidity, and that's hot. And there's 105 degrees with no humidity, and it feels like a convection oven because the wind hits you from the south, and it's a hot, dry heat. So we're gonna do this again from the air conditioning in the house. Today we're gonna talk about creating your own narrative. What does that mean when I say create your own narrative? You know, we're on this plane. We have again, we've talked about the ego mind. I say the ego mind. To me, they're separate. To me, you have an ego and you have a mind. Totally would call it your ego identity, and that ego is who you think you are, and that who you think you are is created over the span of a lifetime, from the time you are born here until the time you die. And that, generally speaking, is not a good thing, because a lot of times your ego is born from all of the events around you. It's born from your trauma. It's born from how you were raised, the environment you were raised in, where you were raised, who your friends were, who your enemies were, all the things. We talked a little bit about this last week. Whether people thought you were beautiful, whether people thought you were ugly, whether people thought you were smart, stupid, whatever. That ego was created based on all of that set of conditions, learned conditions, circumstances that were placed before you. So that's who you actually think you are. However, when you start to shed that ego, when you start to deal with that trauma, what happens is you start to actually align closer to your soul, which is who you really, really are. And I think in this era, we allow the conditions around us to create our narrative. We allow our government and society and news, all these things create our narrative. 2020 has been a perfect example to talk about creating your own narrative, because if you watch the news or you exist on social media, you constantly see the changing way that things shift every day. And, people who are in charge, how they want to direct you in this life, what they want to do, how they want to keep you conditioned in this life, thinking and feeling a certain way, and how your ego falls right into line with that. So creating your own narrative, though, is quite a bit different. Like some of y'all know, like I stopped watching the news a long time ago because I got really tired of, it seems like every day it's all sensationalism. Every day it's all negative. And the funny thing is that depending on what news source you watch, they can take an event, maybe an event you were at, and they can both shine such completely different examples of that event that even if you were there, you might sit back and go, was I even at that event? And you understand that there's a purpose behind that. It's because they want to drive your narrative one way or the other. And by driving your narrative one way or the other, it allows them to keep us feeling like we're alone, to keep us feeling like there's a them out there and there's an us out there. When in reality, there isn't a them and an us. As we talked about last week, we're all one. We're one. There's no differences between our souls. We're all one. I've always found it interesting because, even religion, it drives us apart. Now, I'm not saying there's no fact or reality in religion. What I'm saying is that there are different religions. And, when you look at them, a lot of them, they all drive towards the same goal. Yet they have a lot of similarities in how they drive them, but people look at the differences in how they drive them. We get into this, my God's greater than your God argument, rather than understanding that it's the same God. well, this is my ascended master did this and yours did that. Well, I think the understanding is that if God, puts in comes here or someone ascends, that those ways are to help you to understand the ultimate goal. The problem we have with, in those things is that, it's designed to make you feel separate from God, but you're not separate from God. You're not separate from God. God created all of us. So in essence, if you wanted to go all the way back to the beginning, God is actually your father and God is actually your mother. Just like God was Jesus's father and God was Jesus's mother. We all have the same ability to get to the same points. It just takes us longer to get there because we have to learn how to escape this ego creation, this ego identity, to actually connect with our soul. When you look at all religions, a lot of them say the same things. God's not out here somewhere. God's not up there in heaven. Go look in heaven. Go drive to California. If you drive to California and you go to Dana Point, God lives there at that address. So if you go there, you can meet God, then you find God. All of them talk about it. If you want to find God, go within. All of them say that. If you want to find God, go within. Well, what inside of you would make you believe that God's there? Well, your soul. That is what finding God is. It's connecting with your soul. Because when you connect with your soul, you're connecting with the divinity that you are, that God created. That is a direct spark from God. It says it in the Bible. It talks about it in Buddhism. It talks about it in all major religions. So there's no arguing that. If you want to argue that, you're just arguing against a universal truth that you can never win. So creating the narrative. When you wake up in the morning, you choose your narrative for the day. Stop letting outside factors choose the narrative for the day. You choose the narrative for the day. When I stopped looking at news, I stopped all of a sudden starting to judge everything in the world as bad. I didn't wake up in my morning creating a negative image in my mind about what's going on in the world. I started waking up and I was like, wow, I feel happy today. Wow, it's a beautiful day. And it started to change and shift who I was. Those are ways to kind of start stepping away from your ego and start stepping into closer alignment to your soul. We talk about these concepts, and I want to talk about this because this one's a difficult one. It was a difficult one for me in the beginning, and there's, I was given some clarity on this as well, and I understand the clarity as well. Self-love. We talked about last week, in order to unconditionally love people around you, you have to learn to unconditionally love yourself. And so we talked about, well, you have to do self-love. So let's talk about what self-love is. Is self-love, well, I'm going to go to the movie I want to watch by myself, or I'm going to do this because I enjoy it? In some cases, it might be. But here's, to me, what self-love is. For here in the United States, we've been on this kick about eating healthy. I want to eat healthy. I want to improve my body. I want to improve the way my body looks. And we focused on that. However, I think we've missed some things on self-love. And here's what they are. Everything that goes into your body determines who you are. When you start connecting to your soul, you start understanding that the things you put into your body negatively affect who you are, because your ego attaches to them, and then it creates another narrative for you to follow versus the narrative of who you are, which is your eternal soul. So I've already been kind of going through these practices, but I'm gonna actually take it even a step further for the next 30 days, and I invite you to join me on this journey. So we have senses, right? We have all the senses, and out of all those senses, we focus on really eating healthy, so we have a healthy body, because it's an image that we can actually create by doing these things. If I exercise more and I eat healthy, my body shape will change and it will give me the body that I desire to have. That's great, and that is one of the things of self-love, is really taking care of yourself, getting exercise, getting out into nature, eating the right foods. When you think about it, what you put in you is energy. And so whatever you put in you, that whatever energy you choose to put in you is the energy that your body is going to use and consume. And if you put things in you that have bad energy, it's going to not give you the power and clarity that you need to be who you are. But have you ever thought about this? What you listen to actually is also what you consume and what you put into your body. It's because it's what you put into your brain. I'm going to give you an example. For me, I stopped listening to music with words. And the reason I chose to do that is because I found that a lot of the music with words gave my mind a narrative. It changed the way I feel. So if I listened to music with words that were like angry and aggressive, I would feel angry and aggressive. If I listened to words like love songs, sad love songs, I would start to feel down. All of those things that you put into your ears also affect who you are in your mind. And so these things are put out in that manner. There's actually studies that talk about the level of music that is projected can also affect the way you feel. And for instance, there's studies out there about, if you listen to music at a certain megahertz or a certain hertz, it actually makes you feel better. So I've chosen to take words out of the music. So, yeah, I do karaoke a lot of times, but even when I'm doing that karaoke, I find I'm going to songs, and sometimes those songs are driving the narrative of where I am. So what do I listen to a lot more of now? I listen to a lot of classical music for me. I'm not suggesting that's something you should do. However, there is something in classical music without words that always does enlighten me. It makes me feel light and happy, and to think that classical music could make you want to dance and prance around, and that wouldn't do that, but it does for me. Last night, 4th of July, I listened to trance, and I actually went out in the pool and just sat in the pool and listened to trance and watched the fireworks and looked at the full moon, and it was magical. It was magical. It created an environment that made me feel so whole and complete. It's not even describable. So that's another thing you consume. We're going to talk about another thing, your eyes. What you choose to watch. What you choose to watch is what you're also putting into your body. What you choose to watch is also feeding the ego or helping the ego to go away. So when you choose to watch violent movies, guess what? You're desensitizing yourself to violence. When you choose to watch sad movies, you're putting in your head these feelings of sadness or depression. Your ego is going to tie to those things. It's going to attach itself to those things. And so it's going to feed that narrative that that's who you are. But when you when you watch comedy and you laugh, laughing is healing, is it not? So when you watch comedy, stand-up comedy or whatever, that creates a completely different narrative. I stay away from rom-coms because right now in my life, I don't want to get that sad sense of lack in love, because I am love and I am whole and I am complete. And I just absolutely love spending this time in this life with me now when I never used to. So I like to watch stand-up comedians and such. And for me, nothing's off limits. I mean, comedy is satire. It just makes fun of the matrix that we are in, of the human condition that we choose to allow to take ourselves down that path. Okay? Touch, it's a sense as well. We talked about sex last week. When you choose to touch another person, whatever energy that they have, you're taking that energy in too. I mean, it's things that we don't think about, okay? When you choose to go into a situation where you're meaninglessly, offering yourself up to another person in those fashions, you're taking that energy into your body. Taste. These are all the tastes. These are all the tastes that we have, that we choose whether we want to indulge in those tastes or not. What I thought was interesting is, people talk about others that go vegan, they make fun of them. They talk about people who go vegetarian and they make fun of them. It's interesting. I thought about this yesterday, that based on where you grew up and on what you ate, a lot of times initially in your life determines what you choose to eat in life. So if you raised your kids eating fast food, your kids are gonna probably start eating fast food. If you raise your kids eating junk food, they're probably gonna want to eat junk food. However, if you raise your kids eating vegetables, they may lean more towards vegetables. Well, the taste is all determined on how you were raised. And I'll give you an example. You can add spices to almost anything, and depending on the spices that you add can change the flavor of whatever you eat. Most people I know don't go buy a steak and throw it on the grill and just eat it the way it is. They put spices on the steak to make the steak taste in a particular manner. But the only time you might not do that is if you go to a high-end steak restaurant and pay $65 for a piece of meat. Well, in that case, you're getting the most premium cut of meat that there is, prepared in the most premium way, and yeah, they are seasoning it in some cases. Now, I'm not suggesting that you're going to go out and you're going to have a zucchini and it's going to taste like a steak. It's a different texture. But it doesn't mean that if you choose to have the zucchini, you can't season the zucchini in a way that is pleasurable to you, that you want to eat it. Same with fish, same with chicken, same with anything. You choose what you put in your body. What people, again, they don't understand, and you're going to think, oh, when I say this, that this is some sort of new age hokey bullshit, but I'm going to test it over the next 30 days, because the more I think about it, the more it actually makes sense to me. The energy that animal carries is the energy you put into your body, because energy doesn't die. When our bodies die, we decay, and all of this goes back into the earth, and it's recycled and reused. That's why it's this constant flow. That's what the infinity symbol actually demonstrates. It's the rise and the fall back down, and then the rise back up and the fall back down. That's actually what it means, and it's an eternal loop. That's what it is. And so if that is the case, then, if you're eating food from an animal that was treated inhumanely, and that animal had a lot of fear and cortisol in his body, when you consume that, you're consuming that cortisol. You're consuming that into your body. That's the energy you're putting in your body. Cortisol's not good. We have all the scientific studies to show when you have cortisol in your body, you don't feel good. You don't feel happy. These are all things that keep us from our connection to our soul. So it's not just about what you think. It's about everything on this plane that helps you to connect to your soul. We put alcohol in our body because it makes us feel happy and good, but it doesn't really do that, because maybe the first one or two might make you feel a little light and tingly, but then when you have 3 or 4, then all of a sudden your mind now doesn't feel right. Sometimes you get depressed. That's why a lot of people, they get angry. What's inside of you is what comes out. It's no different when you talk about certain kinds of drugs and stuff. What's inside of you is what comes out. So think about what you're putting inside of you. At moments when I'm most connected with my soul, it's hard to describe to you what the feeling is, but the feeling is similar to being high. It's a very similar feeling. You see things clearer. You hear things clearer. When you're out of your mind and you're not having thoughts constantly run through your mind, there's clarity to everything around you. It's like tasting that first strawberry in the spring off the first crop, and you haven't had one for 6 months. It just explodes in your mouth. That is what being connected to your soul feels like. And if people are going to tell me that there's something wrong with that, then I have to ask the question, why would you not want to feel that experience every day you wake up? Why would you not want to feel that? Why do you want to let someone else create the narrative in your mind? If everyone created the ego that you live by, you're living a narrative that everyone else created. You're being told who people think you are based on who they thought they were, You're being told that that's who you are when that's not who you are. So when you go away from your ego, you're actually shifting closer to your soul. You're shifting closer to who you really are. And when you shift closer to who you really are, isn't that what being close to God is? Isn't that what God wants? Isn't that what Buddha teaches? Isn't that what Jesus teaches? You know, when I look at these ascended masters before me, it amazes me. What amazes me is how they were able to speak to people. They didn't actually tell you what you would feel when you connect to your soul. They told you enough to get you to want to try to figure it out yourself. Because the truth is, no matter how much we feel like the human language has evolved, connections I've had with other souls, there are no words that accurately describe what that feels like. There have been 4 people in my lifetime that I've met that meeting them and talking to them and interacting with them, the words do not describe that connection. And just so you know, those connections, they didn't include sex, they didn't include drugs, they didn't include alcohol. They were in very sober moments. And those connections were like it feels like when I am connected to myself. 2 were 2 individuals, 1 was a couple. I was so honored by those connections, it was life-changing for me. If I had to just try to describe them and put it in the words, here's what the words I would use. Beauty, totality, completeness or a oneness. That's what it felt like. Change the narrative. Be your narrative. Stop living life based on however other people tell you you have to live your life. Stop living life based on what the ego identity in your mind told you you were supposed to live. You know, I had a situation where someone reached out and said something, pretty negative to me this week. And, when I talk to you about, purging your ego, understand I'm perfect just like all y'all. My soul's perfect like all of your souls are. But as a human, I'm not perfect. I don't think I'm perfect. I don't believe I'm perfect. And I'm always striving to be better. So when I tell you about purging your ego, as much as I've been able to purge mine, I still have one. I still have one. However, the difference is that now that I'm aware of it and I'm purging it, it's easier for me to see it and then continue to purge it more. When this thing happened, immediately it took a shot to me, and I had to take a step back, and it took me a little bit, and I'm like, wow, why would somebody say this? This is a message of unconditional love. I'm not calling anyone out. I'm just trying to help people to understand how they can be and feel different in this lifetime. And then I realized it was a perfect example of what I talked about. When I said to you, tyrants, people follow tyrants and they support them and they chant things for them. But when someone starts talking about unconditional love, it's a scary thing, because unconditional love dictates death of ego. Because unconditional love dictates that who you were told that you were in your head is not who you are, and that has to die. And it doesn't want to die. Again, we've talked about this, I call it my parasite. It doesn't want to die. It wants to keep living in there. But as you start to purge it, for me this weekend, I had a moment of clarity where I actually sat and I looked in the mirror and I actually spoke to the remainder of the ego that is in my mind. And I said, thank you. I said, thank you for being here and getting me to a point in my life where I could understand the constructs of what this world has to offer. And I said to it, it's okay for you to go now. It's okay for you to die now. Don't be afraid of it. You will be recycled back into the earth. Your energy will still exist. But I took the moment to thank it. And I took the moment to let it know, just like Tony that was here before me, I will remember you and I will honor you. You're not going to be gone. And it brought me so much peace. So much peace that I hope that someday everyone who watches this can look in the mirror and have that same discussion and can realize that the release of that and the release of the image that makes you think that everyone made you think you are is not that image. You are beautiful. You are whole. You are complete. You are perfect. I realize the spiritual journey is not a journey at all. You are those things. You already are those things. You just don't know you are those things. It's just been kept from you. It's time to open your eyes and realize you are those things now. There's no journey to get there. It's all in you already. It all exists in you already. So I hope this reaches you all well. I hope that when you hear this, this speaks to your soul. I hope that when you hear this, you understand that all those thoughts that go through your head, the depression thoughts, the unhappy thoughts, even the thoughts of happiness, that's all programmed into you by all of the external forces around you and by who raised you and where you were raised and how you were raised. And I hope you understand that that is not you. I touch my heart every time because for me, my heart chakra, that's where my soul, that's where I'm connected to my soul. It's different for other people. That's where my soul is connected. That's why I continue to touch my heart chakra. It has nothing to do with your heart is your soul. Your heart's eternal. Your soul's eternal. Your soul's eternal. It is the truth. It's what guides you. So I'm gonna leave it at that, and wish you many blessings on this Sunday. I love y'all very much. Peace, joy, blessings. I'll talk to you again soon. Thank you very much.